Authentication versus authorization. Why don't we start here, Austin?
All right. So I feel like most people use or think about authentication and authorization like they're the same, like they're interchangeable. They sound the same, right? So they must be the same thing. However, unfortunately, that is not the case. And in college, as you're going through your computer science curriculum, you more often than not have a cybersecurity type of class or course that you have to take, or something that encompasses the realm of cybersecurity. And one of the first things that they teach you about is authentication and authorization. And what's the difference between the two? Because it's a very big and important difference. So when we're talking about authentication in the Austin dummy definition of the word is, are you who you say you are, right? So are you Jose? How can I authenticate that is Jose? All right. He has the last name of blank. He was born at this particular time and he is from this place. Okay. It's Jose, authenticated. Now, authorization is not, are you who you say you are, but are you allowed to have access to this? So, okay, that's cool. That's Jose. But we're in my apartment complex. I have the authority to go in and out of this apartment complex because I have the authorization because I live here. Jose doesn't live here. I have the authorization. I'm authorized to come in and out of this apartment complex, and I have the authority to allow him to come in and out of this complex. So are you allowed to have access to this? Now, why does this matter? This matters because as you go through life, it has a very interesting way of testing you. And when you're going through this tough time or tough experience that life brings, you're going to think that you're something. You might think that you're Goliath, or you might think that you're, David, but you turn out to be Goliath. You might think that you're the head honcho, but you turn out to be a worker. So what is life going to do? When you're thinking this about yourself, when you think you're big shit, you know what life is going to do? It's going to authenticate you. It's going to ask, are you who you say you are? Now, this is something that we've experienced a lot, but Jose, how would you say life authenticates you?
The first thing that life is going to do is it's going to stretch your understanding of what authentication is.
Enlighten us.
The first thing that's going to happen is your definition of who you are is going to be tested, but the actual definition of the test itself is going to evolve. Because as we say, new levels bring new devils.
Right.
So something that is rather unfortunate is going to happen to you. You're going to suffer. You're going to go through a new degree of discomfort because nothing great comes from anything that's simple, expedient, or easy. And in the process, you're going to become doubtful. And you're going to say, does this even matter? What is this? Why me? Woe is me. Does this really have to happen right now? And therefore, you need to shift that mindset to understand that this is the authentication process. And so you have to come back to reality. And once you realize that this is the new definition of authentication, now you get to behave accordingly. and you get to show who you truly are through your actions, not through your words. You follow, or you show to your followers through your actions, not by your words. Because words are cheap, but actions are expensive. And the biggest thing when it comes to authentication is that you have to prove it to yourself for you to believe who you are. Because the belief, or the action precedes the belief. What podcast was that? One of our podcasts.
Yeah, it's one of our podcasts. You go back and find that. But that's actually a great point that you said there, because from a lot of the things that we're experiencing nowadays, we believed that we could withstand this type of pressure, this type of stress, all that, right? But it's a completely different thing when you're believing this and you're not experiencing it to its fullest extent or just a large extent. But then you get tested with life on hard mode. Then it's like, okay, I believe this about myself beforehand, but now, shit, like it's really testing me at this point to see if I am who I say I am. And this kind of reminds me of companies and hiring. So whenever you have an interview for a company, you more often than not start with what? A resume. The first thing a company does when considering your employment is to check your resume. Then they'll ask you in an interview to talk over your resume. Then they'll test you on your supposed skills that you say that you have put into your resume. Why do they do this? They have to authenticate you. They have to authenticate who you are. They have to authenticate if you are who you say you are. Now, when you do this, what does this give you? Authentication by them thus leads you to authorization into their company. So we talked about authentication, authorization at the beginning of the podcast, kind of together. And this is why. But before we get into more on authorization and whatnot, I wanted to give this example because this is something that I went through in my early years of college. And I don't think you've heard this story before. So we were in this assembly. Yeah, you probably did.
Dude, this is a story from...
Yeah, it was a while ago. It was like 6 years ago, bro.
This is like when we used to sit at Zilker and just go into the nihilistic abyss.
Yeah.
And just sit there and stew in negativity.
Yeah, back in more depressing days.
Y'all have no idea.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
I remember this day too.
Yeah, so we were in a auditorium. We were freshmen at my college. And the presenter was talking and he was going on about just how tough college will be and yada, yada, yada. It was just like in one ear, out the other, right? But then he said something which was so funny. Funny in retrospect, but at the time it was interesting. He said, look to your left, look to your right. Somebody that you're sitting next to is not going to be here by the time you reach your 4 years, because that's what we do here. We graduate in 4 years. Somebody that you see around you is not going to be here. And you know what's crazy about that? Even though I was, by the standards, an exemplary student, I turned out to be one of those people. Now, I say that to say that college was not just a test of knowledge, but it's also a test of attrition. At the time, I thought I was untouchable. Nothing can fuck with me. I'm unfuckwithable. Now, I'm going around thinking that, and you know what life did? You know what college did? It said, okay, let's see if you are who you say you are. And slapped the air just like that, slapped the shit out of me, you know? And through that process, it challenged me to, like you said, authenticate myself. Because once that happened and I was no longer at that school, it was like, wow, I thought I was this. Apparently I'm not. So what am I going to do? It's time to nut up or shut up. Got to authenticate myself to see if I am who I say I am. And that was an example, one of my main examples, one of my first real deal experiences of authentication, how life will test you with that. And I'll add, before I pass it over to Jose, that you can look at these authentication moments as something that's a negative. And at first, I did see it as something that was negative. I saw it as something like, wow, I wasn't who I said I was. But here's the thing. I wasn't, as in past tense, who I said or I thought I was. However, I woke up the next morning. I woke up the next day. I woke up. So I got to choose from that moment on to say, look, I wasn't who I said I was in the past, but I am going to be who I say I am today and moving forward. So I got to take that authentication test, the authentication moment, and transform that negative experience into a positive experience to where now I continuously authenticate myself saying I'm that guy and proving it to myself on a day in and day out basis.
And that's a perfect summarization of what it means to authenticate, because this is something that you have to do on a daily basis. The clock always starts at 0 every single morning. It doesn't matter what you did yesterday. It doesn't matter who you were yesterday. It doesn't matter who wronged you or who you wronged. Every day is a fresh day. Every hour is a new hour. Every minute is a new minute. And therefore, you always have to continually prove to yourself who you are. And that is a process of looking forward, not looking back, because nor looking in the present. It's, hey, am I the kind of person who's going to open the door for this individual? Am I the kind of person who's going to take the burden of responsibility in my family when there is an unfortunate passing? Am I the kind of person who's going to look at my lady and say, hey, you're taken care of, and so are our kids. You don't have to worry. Am I the type of person who's going to wake up every single day and show up with his A game to win, but be humble and respectful to those around me at the same time? Those are all ways to authenticate yourself on a daily basis. And one of the most important things is your internal dialogue, because authentication begins and ends with your internal dialogue. It can become a self-fulfilling prophecy of negativity, but it can also be a self-fulfilling prophecy of positivity.
Exactly.
And I think you and I are very, very, very familiar with this because, as Tony Robinson says, Robbins. Not bad. I don't know where the sentence came. Meet the Robinsons. That's where it came from. As Tony Robbins says, your mind will form your character. And if you do not align your thoughts with the character that you want to have, then you'll never achieve the character that you desire. And that is why your mind is the most powerful tool. And that is why your internal dialogue creates your reality. Because if you say, I'm a loser, if you say I'm a victim, if you say I'm forever fat, if you say that I am lazy, if you say anything that's negative or derogatory or uncharacteristic of the character that you're desiring or working towards, then you're never going to align to it. And now you can use that as motivation, that internal dialogue. Like David Goggins, you can make it into a shit-talking soundtrack, and I love that. But, that's not for everybody. And I'm not ignorant enough to say that there's only one way to the gold. There's multiple ways. Some people can benefit from using negative self-talk to push them, and other people motivate themselves better with positive self-talk. But just find what works for you. Learn to authenticate through the process.
And authenticating yourself through the process, one might say, why do you even need it? Why is this important to authenticate yourself? Why does it matter? I don't even care about that. You know why it matters? So once you're authenticated, just like I mentioned before in the interview, once they authenticate you and say that you are who you say you are, you now are hired. Now, what does that mean? That means that you now have access to that company's information, that company's network, that company's offices, what have you. So for you, when you authenticate yourself, the more that you authenticate yourself, the more you say, look, I am this person and I am who I say I am, the more you're authorized. So if you want to succeed, you're going to have to constantly authenticate yourself, because life, the business, challenges, whatever, are going to arise and are going to test you day in and day out to say, look, I am who I say I am. I am a businessman or woman. I am a smart, intelligent person that knows the ins and outs of marketing, the ins and outs of supply chain, what have you. I am this person. And the more that you consistently prove that to yourself and others, the more success you garner. Now, the more success you garner, you now have more authorization. Now, the more you prove who you say you are, the more authorized to access certain things in the world, the more you are access to access certain things in the world, such as luxury items. So the more you prove that you are who you say you are, the more you get to access certain things like buying a Pagani Zonda, buying a yacht, buying a big ass real estate property. You can't do that if you're not consistently authenticating yourself and proving that you are who you say you are. Because if you're unproven in this field or in any field, you're not credible. And if you're not credible, nobody's going to want to do business with you. And if nobody wants to do business with you, you don't have any income. And without that income, you can't do shit. But the more that you're authenticated, the more people can look at you and say, oh shit, that's that guy that does that thing. I need somebody that does that thing. Let me go talk to him about doing that thing so he can do that thing for me. Then I can give him money to do that thing. And they're doing that because you're authenticated. And again, the more you authenticate yourself, the more you're authorized to have access to certain things in life. The others aren't.
And with that, I would like to posit the philosophical maxim from the temple of Apollo in the ancient Greek precinct of Delphi, which is also a quote from Socrates. Know thyself. Know thyself. And yes, shout out to Socrates.
Know thyself.
You must know who you are, because if you do not know who you are, you do not know where you are headed. in order to authenticate and in order to authorize, you need to know who you are to authenticate. And if you don't know who you are, you also can't authorize because there's no identification. And so if you don't know thyself, how can anybody know you? And by extension, if nobody knows who you are, then who can help you when you're crying for help? Because we can't live alone. We can't thrive alone. We might be able to survive alone, but we can't thrive alone. And so my challenge to you, our viewership, is to know thyself, study your behavior, read the laws of human nature from the good old Robert Greene, and take that time to be introspective and understand and create a method by which you get to self-authorize every single day, a tangible method, not one where you just spontaneously realize who you are every 2-3 months in a cyclical fashion, but one where every single day when you put your head on that pillow, you can say unequivocally, this is who I am, and I proved that to myself, the world, and everyone else.
The AM Club Podcast.
Signing out.
The AM Club Podcast.